weird and wonderful world of anime voice acting. From iconic catchphrases to scenes that give us the chills, we're going behind the mic to see what really brings these characters to life. So please, help me introduce some of the virtuosos of voice acting. We've got Miss Annie Wild, come on up, make some noise. Jeremy G. Tiffany Grant. And my buddy and pal. Come on up here, Mr. Panda. Mr. Panda, that's gonna be your name. You don't get a real name, get a microphone. Only because we're friends. All right, you guys have questions? It's too early for questions. You like that? Right on, cool. All right, man, we were all looking up at this great panel of guests. I hope that some of you are inspired to do some voiceover. Is anybody inspired to do voiceover? Some voiceover acting? Make some noise?
Us either.
No? All right, so you decide that you want to do some voiceover. And this is exactly what you want to do in life.
Sure.
Right on. What are some of the first steps to take to set you on that right path?
Well, it's about acting. Voice acting is kind of right there in the title. So acting is the most important part. You can even be short where your feet don't reach all the way to the ground. And still be a voice actor, so there's no height requirement. Very, very important to know. My background was theater, so yeah, that's the most important thing about being a voice actor is being an actor.
Yeah, just going off that, getting on stage I think is super important. I also come from theater background, and if you can get on stage where you're not just a voice, but also showing like your face and like this is me, I'm performing, and getting uncomfortable in that way. I think getting behind a mic and I won't say hiding behind an animation, but you do have that freedom to kind of like play a lot more whenever you're behind the mic, and if you're already comfortable playing and making a bit of a fool of yourself on stage, it's a whole lot easier to do it whenever you're recording.
Absolutely, and we largely, work with, and we'll get into cold reads, so we don't see scripts beforehand. So being able to be unafraid to make choices and to fail big and to fail in front of a director and sound engineer, and if anybody else is in the room or anybody's there virtually, having the opportunity to know that that's part of it. I think theater is definitely a really important tool to that, or taking improv classes, getting out of your comfort zone as much as possible, and knowing that every single one of us here has made a really bizarre choice in the booth, and that we're just fine, and you will be too.
Sitting next to Bradley Smith, we got Corey Wilder, who's joining us. What's up, Corey? Welcome.
I was stuck in my booth.
You were stuck in your booth?
How dare you?
Make it sound like the punishment.
Listen, I was missing the panel. I was like, oh, I gotta get back out here,
We're talking,
welcome.
We're talking about how you get into voice acting. What is it? How to start voice acting?
Yeah, it's some of the first steps to get you on the right
First
path.
steps. And what I would say first, going off what they went with theater background, I also have a theater background. You do really want to get good at all forms of acting, because I feel like even when you're in the booth, you're still making those faces. You still throw your whole body into the performance. That's how you get a really good, solid voiceover take. And when I started voice acting, I started just in my closet with cheap microphones surrounded by my clothes. Like, it was unprofessional, but I loved voice acting so much. I wanted to do it, whether it was paid or not. So I just took unpaid gigs. I was honing my craft and getting good so I could work up to getting paid gigs, and then higher paid gigs and significant roles. So it's putting in the work if it's something you love. You don't just land an anime role or something big like overnight.
I agree with literally like everything that was just said, because it was the same way for me. I started doing theater in high school and then started doing film in college and just doing theater and film until like COVID hit. And then that was when I actually started diving like into voiceover and actually trying to learn everything about it, which made it a lot easier for me because I already did theater and I did film, which are two different mediums. Because theater's a lot more expressive, a lot more showy. You're waving your arms, your faces are making all these scrunchy faces. And then for film, it's not that. It's usually the eyes, it's a lot more subtle. And each of those things you can take into voiceover, which is why it's so helpful to do all forms of acting, trying all forms of acting, because you never know when you can incorporate it into what you're doing. And it's also just like taking a leap. Taking a leap is really important. Just making choices like in the performance that you're making, even if it's a silly choice, even if it's going to like a 12, usually a director can pull you back and be like, all right, that was great. Let's just pull you back. So just being not afraid to make choices is really, really important as well.
So once you get that job, right? So you've got the job and all that jazz. How do you prepare for your upcoming role? What are some of the things you do to prepare for that?
Yeah, the way that I prepare, it's interesting. It mainly, hi Mauricio. Come on.
Mauricio is here. Hello.
Come on.
You and Corey must have been hanging out. Well, we have an empty chair over here if you'd like.
Oh, never mind. All right. Sorry. I'm sorry. I know. I was just like, man, I gotta get to hang out with my boy. No, the ways that at least I prepare for a role is that if there's some kind of source material, I will try and read it. Not too much of it. I'll try to read normally like the flashbacks of like my characters so that I can kind of know where they're coming from, what kind of spurred them to be the way that they are when the story is started. And another way to prepare is sometimes just listening to music. There's some music that really helps get me into like a mood of how the character feels. Like I have character playlists on Spotify where I'm like, all of these songs make me feel like I can get into the character. So it may be a little bit unorthodox, but that's how I prepare anyways.
Ways to prepare for a role.
It's not unheard of that you would not know what you're working on before you start working on it. When you show up at the studio or whatever, you really might not know. A lot of times, even if you maybe know what the title is, you may or may not know the character that you're playing, or you may not know really much about it at all. So I don't often necessarily, I'm preparing for like, oh, it's this specific character or this specific show. So it's really just about maybe being rested, hydrated, having water. I like to drink, herbal teas when I'm recording. So that's pretty much it. Because it's very much informs you, I think, as an actor, as a performer, like all of that, the theater stuff and all that, those things we were talking about before, sort of, I guess, internally, if that makes any sense. But it's not like a play or a movie or something where you read the whole script in advance, And actually, the thing that we're doing after this, which I'm really looking forward to, the radio play thing, I was offered the opportunity, like, would you like to read the script in advance? I was like, no, I really love cold reading, so what I'm doing to prepare for that is I've been an actor for like 50 years, so.
And that goes along with like all the saying that we've done theater. Was Jeremy someone that said they've done improv too? Okay. I feel like though improv is something that's a really good practice for voiceover too. And like even if you've just dabbled in doing it on stage, you've now probably done it a good amount voice acting, because when you're thrown into that situation where you aren't familiar with the script, you have to really be confident in the choices that you take. And you're gonna be like, I'm going with this voice. You've got to stick with it so it doesn't fall out. You're like, maybe I want to change it. You just got to go with it strong, pick a choice and stick with it.
I think with preparation, I'm not sure how to prep for it, but just being ready to take direction. That's such a huge part as an actor, is not just like, this is what I'm doing, and that nothing's going to veer me off this path. It's not just you in that booth. You have the director, you have the writer sometimes. It's just like being able to take that direction and not just be married to this one idea of thinking, but having an open mind going in.
And like protecting your voice is a huge thing. Sustainability when you were recording, depending on like how many hours you have for those episodes for that character, you might be going into a 3 or 4 hour session and you don't know in advance if it's a very like vocally taxing character. So like knowing how to warm up your voice, like knowing how to also get your tongue untwisted. It might feel, cliche or cheesy to say, but like all of those tongue twisters, all of the warming up the mouth, like the actual mechanics of it. This stuff that's not glamorous is the stuff that makes it sustainable in this industry. A lot of people can go into a space and scream their guts out and have it be a really iconic moment. But if you did that every single time you went in, like you're gonna hurt your instrument. And so that's kind of the nerding out part about it is like it's learning how to protect yourself just like any athlete. We're just like vocal athletes sometimes in there for long periods of time.
They've got the voiceover for funsies going on today. Anybody partaking in that that's here? I know my buddy Danny is, a couple other people as well. Hi, you doing all right? You want to answer a question?
Yeah, I keep looking for you to say something.
No, very cool. Well, how about this? Preparing for a role that's upcoming. Is there something different? How do you approach finding the voice of a brand new character? Is there something different with that?
So when it comes to finding the voice for like a brand new character, it really comes down to, what sort of genre are you in, right? Are you in a romance? Are you in a shonen? Are you in a comedy? Are you in like all sorts of different genres, especially if you're doing like anime or cartoons of that sort? They all have very different performances. Like if you ever do, like when I do romance is always very grounded. It's all the interactions, even if the voice veers away from a more grounded take, the delivery typically is still in like a grounded realm. And so when it comes to finding a voice for that, a lot of times what I do is if there's a manga, I read it. Sometimes I'll get a voice in my head. If not, sometimes I don't have time to read something before I go in and do it. Sometimes they'll be like, hey, can you be in 10 a.m. tomorrow? And the email was sent at midnight. And I was like, yeah, I can be there. And sometimes you just have to trust your instincts and the director. And sometimes if the director will tell you if they think what you're doing is stupid. Like, they'll tell you like, what the hell are you doing? Stop that. We're gonna do something else now. And that'll be the take that you end up going with. And what they keep is usually what worked in the end. And sometimes you come up with it all on your own. Sometimes it's instincts. Sometimes it's research. And sometimes it's a collaborative effort. But for me, it's always fun finding the voice of a new character.
Anyone else?
I think a lot of times, like if you're called in or you're cast, usually they know what you're capable of with your voice. So the fun thing, because we're not all vocal magicians who can create a million different sounding voices. That's why there's so many voice actors, is that we all have so many different voices. But if you're saying if you get cast in anime as one character then another one, and it's a very similar type of character, the fun is figuring out the subtle difference between the two for yourself. So you're not just like doing the same voice, but it's going, okay, this character may sound like this other one, but there's this one thing that I definitely know I always do. He has a little bit of a lisp, but something like that. It's just you give each character something different, even if it's just for yourself as the actor to really focus on.
I always like to point out that it's creating a character. So it's not just doing a voice. It is creating a character. And in that respect, it's really exactly the same as you would approach any other form of acting, whether it's on stage, on camera. The character that you're creating, they happen to sound a certain way. Maybe the character sounds exactly like my normal speaking voice. Maybe it's a 6-year-old boy. Maybe it's a 70-year-old woman. So, my voice is going to change accordingly to that. When you watch a TV show, when you watch a movie, the actors in those shows, they're not necessarily speaking in their normal, everyday speaking voice. Just because you can see them doesn't mean that they're talking the way that they normally talk. So people don't think about it as much maybe because you can see them. Because it's voiceover, you're only thinking about our voices, but you're creating the character in the same way. So I just like to throw that out there. It's creating a character. It's not just doing a voice. So.
And sometimes it's just your voice. You just pitch it up just the smallest bit, and it makes like the smallest change. And that's all it is. It's not. I have sometimes I work as a carpenter on the side, and people sometimes they're like, "How many voices can you do?" I'm like, "Doc, I just changed my voice a little bit." Because in the long run, that is your voice, right? No matter what, it's your voice. You're just tweaking it a little bit. Sometimes it is extreme, but it doesn't always have to be like, I'm talking like Goofy now, or something like that. It's just adjusting your voice in small ways, or sometimes big ways, but in the long run, it is your voice.
It's not like a jukebox where you're making a selection of like, I want voice 12B, and then that pops out. I could do a limitless number of voices because there's a limitless number of characters. So,
And if
I
you,
love that. That's a great question.
if you want to get into voice acting, I will say just one piece of advice I always like giving is rock your natural voice. That's the strongest voice you have. No one else can impersonate you better than you can just perform your own natural voice. I even had it where I was like, I don't like my normal voice. It doesn't sound like voiceover, like voices I hear, until you get cast. It's until it happens, and then it is. So don't think you can't do voiceover because maybe you're thinking your voice doesn't sound a way. It sounds unique. It's you. Rock that.
And once you get comfortable with that voice that you've created, obviously you feel comfortable. But is there like a role that pushed you all out of your comfort zone at all?
So there's a character that I voice in this little YouTube web series called Athmau, and his his name is Peeves. And at first they were asking for just an adolescent kind of voice. So I was like, okay, so I went for something more like right here, because I was like, yeah, it's still like my regular voice, but it sounds like a little bit younger, a little bit more like a teen. They sent it back and they were like, we like what you did. We want to. Here's a reference for what we're looking for though. And they sent me Butters from South Park. And so I had never seen South Park, so I looked up a whole hour-long compilation of Butters from South Park, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I sent the audio file back to them, and all they hear is,
Yeah, I'm all up here. I'm just going like that and woo, and doing all this thing.
and it's so tiring. Because my regular voice, it's like nice, low, like baritone, around that level. And they're like, we want you to go like tenor alto right now and be high energy all the time. And that is the furthest I've ever been out of my comfort zone, ever.
And that's so mean to do to him because the actual South Park guys use technology to pitch shift their
I
voices.
know, exactly. This guy's a real pro.
I was listening and I was like, that sounds like it's pitched up.
But they're like, no, you want me to do it. I'm like, yeah, I can do that, sure, whatever.
So tiring, but so fun. He's a fun character.
I love that you pointed that out though, because
Most of the time we do it, it's usually, I don't want to say never, but usually, yeah, we're not electronically changed. It's usually us doing
It's
it
raw.
ourselves. Yeah.
It's us doing it. We're modulating our own voices.
I guess I'd just say, so my main job, my character that I do is Combo Panda on YouTube. It's a kids gaming YouTube channel. That is the weirdest and most difficult voice I've ever had to do. I didn't think I was going to land the job when I auditioned for it because, well, most young boys in any media, who are they voiced by? It would be you two. It would be the females usually do young boys, and I knew that going into this audition. But luckily, it's YouTube and it's like gaming improv essentially. A lot of it's the personality, and that pulled me through it. But when I started, I'll try to do an impression of myself doing the character the first time. You can go back and listen to it. The first video, it sounds like I've been smoking 20 packs of cigarettes a day.
Oh, this is how he sounded. It sounded really rough and low, but now when I do the character, it sounds like this, and it's like a completely different character.
It's practice, and it took a lot of time. I think it took me about a year to really perfect that. But yeah, that one I was not sure if I was going to be good for it. Luckily, they had me come on, and I stuck with it.
Same boat.
Mine would definitely be that right now. So an anime that I actually started with is called Executioner: Her Way of Life, and I voiced the character Minnow. But Yen Press wanted to put out audiobooks of all of the light novels. And so right now I'm on volume 8 out of 11, and that is a beast because I'm going in there and it's obviously, it's the character I voiced, but it's all of the other characters, and it's ranging in a conversation. It can hit the highest part of my range, and then like kind of a gravelly place. It might be a very, short conversation with a gravelly voiced knight, and then a child who's 10 years old. So it's truly sometimes it's like almost less about like the what I'm putting my voice through and the mental game of it. And even though my director's amazing and it's all color coded and highlighted, you start to feel like you're this person who's like having a conversation with themselves, sitting in a booth, and your like brain is like ping-ponging around in a box. And I think saying the words and making sure they sound like words and that you're not thinking about something in the middle of recording, it's interesting because like that's probably been my most challenging, and really the consistency of it. I think we've all felt this before. You're like, wait, today I have maybe a cold and I sound like myself, but do I sound like myself? And so I'd say probably the most challenging has been also prepping for those books and making sure that it's not just like the one character I'm consistent with. It's like a character was introduced 3 light novels ago, and it's like, I guess I need to go back and check that. So yeah.
Mine would be, it's not necessarily like out of my range, but with Kaiji Ultimate Survivor, I got called in and they're like, hey, this guy smokes like 2 packs a day. I'm like, cool, easy. Like, but you also have 70% of the dialogue because so much is internal. And it's also, this was Squid Game before Squid Game, so the stakes are like up here. The amount of screaming, the amount of just like awful, just grinding your voice. So it wasn't hard in the sense of like the range, but like like we had mentioned earlier, keeping your voice healthy. Having to do that whenever you're recording 20 hours a week and screaming whenever your friends are falling from 20-story buildings and you're crying, but you've also been smoking. Now the character's been smoking 2 packs a day. It's just like finding that voice and maintaining it, and then also being able to say, hey, I know we have another hour, but I got nothing left, and being able to know your boundaries as well, which this was still fairly early, one of my bigger parts early on, and I was scared. I'm like, if I say I can't do it, they're never going to cast me again. So being able to be like, hey, if we want this to be what it needs to be, I gotta chill for today, and I'll come back tomorrow and like finish this out. So I think just like forcing myself, like, no, your health comes first, because otherwise this is gonna be a very short-lived career. So I think that's my most difficult one for different reasons.
Whew. At the beginning of this question, I really didn't even know what my answer was going to be. So, but I was going to say, I might piggyback a little bit off of what you said, because I just, about a year and a half ago, for the first time, I did audiobook narration. And usually, when we go in and record, like, an anime, video game or something, record for a couple hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours, and 4 hours is really about the maximum. And if you haven't ever done it before, it sounds like, 4 hours, who cares? But, I mean, when you're talking a lot, especially if you have to do anything stressful, screaming, anything like that, that is a long time. 4 hours is about it. So when I was going in to record an audiobook for the first time, and it's like, oh, this is like, a 7 or 8 hour day, and it's, what now? And the thing that's different, really, with audiobooks, when you're doing anime or video games, there's a little bit of downtime, especially with anime, because you read a couple lines, and then the sound engineer's matching it up, did it fit or whatever. In an audiobook, it's just you. It's just the narrator. That's it. And it's just me, and just read, and just on and on and on and on and on. And like you said, the consistency has to be there. And yeah, that was tough. That was tough. And trying to, we didn't lean too hard into really making the different voices like super different. But what was funny is when the audiobooks I was doing for Evangelion, and I've been voicing this character of Asuka for a really long time, and so when we get to a part in the book and it was Asuka, I literally would say something like, "Oh, good, this is me." I got this one. Anyway, I'd say, the audiobook narration. That was tough.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. I like to say that ADR is like the American football of voice acting, and audiobook is like the soccer of voiceover. Where in football you're just like, stop go, and then audiobook's like, I'm gonna be running a marathon for the next 3.5 hours, and the only person who can give me a break is me. And that's if you want to get the work done that day. And yeah, some of these audiobook clients are very demanding too. So you got deadlines to meet and everything. And I'm doing an audiobook right now that's more like action oriented. So you gotta put on your Action Jackson voice the whole time. You're like, oh my God, this is the most riveting action you've ever heard because you can't see it. And these guys, they want me to do everybody's voices. I do the protagonist. He sounds a little younger. And then you do the bullies, like, yeah, what's up, nerd? And then I gotta do the girl voices too. Right. And it's like, that just ends up sounding like, hey guys, how's it going? It's just like, that's another fun thing about voiceover is that you get to just kind of have fun and make fun of yourself while you're at it. Because if you're afraid of being embarrassed, then you're gonna have a hard time in this industry, because you're gonna do a lot of embarrassing things, and you're gonna have a lot of embarrassing sessions. You're gonna leave, you're like, oh my God, that was the worst day I've ever had. They're never gonna call me in. I'm cooked. I'm never gonna live in this industry again.
That's not my voice.
I know. And yeah, so yeah, audiobooks, they're a whole different demon when you get to do it for the first time.
I love Action Jackson. I don't know why. I'm not going to stop thinking about that. That's such a funny phrase.
Action Jackson.
Tiffany, you touched on something that a lot of people might not realize, is that when you're doing voiceover, especially I guess since the pandemic, a lot of voiceovers has been done in closets or at home studios, right? And sometimes you're going into a studio with a director. And how do you guys approach if you have to match the lip flapping on the screens? Is there can that be intimidating? I'm sure some of you intimidating with it.
Engineers, maybe.
Yeah, the sound engineers they do some of that work for you. So here's the thing with ADR, which is just dubbing. It's dubbing of a foreign language film. And the way that we do it here is the same way that anybody dubs any live action or animation anywhere in the world, which is you have a script that's adapted for that project. It's not just the translation, because that's never going to fit. You have a script that's adapted, which basically is just going to mean the same thing as the original, but hopefully be the right amount of length to match in those mouth flaps. And hopefully the best you're going to do is start and end at the correct time. They're not going to reanimate it. The animation that's there, or if it's live action, the real live lip flaps that are there, that's what's there, and you've just got to match that. So if the script is good and the director knows what they're doing, and the sound engineers, hallelujah, you're just matching. And I guess some people kind of have a knack for it, maybe some people don't, but yeah. And fun fact, so dubbing, like anime, pays the least of any kind of voice acting you can possibly do. Yes, it's true. Pays bupkis. But yeah, super fun that. Anyway, I don't know if I really answered the question or not, but
Sounds like
I would just second that. I know both of y'all said that sound engineers are like, audio engineers are not like the completely unsung heroes of it, but like absolute, like just incredible minds, incredible people, and like the quick way that they are able to sync stuff up and immediately be able to tell the director too short, too long, and then the script can get adapted. So much happens just because they are able to do that magic work so quick. And I think that a lot of people who love anime but might not want to get involved in like the front-facing part of voice acting or writing or translating or directing, but like have a heart for it. I do know that like the audio engineers we've worked with, some are coming from the music industry and pivoted over. Some have always loved anime and wanted to be a part of that. Some are crossover to different mediums, but like shout out to audio engineers, because there really is not a way around saying like they are the reason that we can match with those flaps. The script is the script until they figure that out.
They do amazing things. There's been so many times.
there's been so many times when I did a take that I thought, oh, that didn't fit, but the sound engineer's like, and they can, not drastically, but they can compress or expand a take that you get if it's really good and the director likes it, like 1 or 2%, and auditorially you cannot tell. You cannot tell that that's been manipulated, or they kind of slide it around in there just so it's, you're right, without them.
And if you get a little phlegmy, a little sound, or like, I'll cut that out.
Yeah.
I don't have to pronounce that name that I can't pronounce again. Thank you.
As we said, with how to, like the first step of getting into voice act, a lot of it has to go with just being confident and comfortable, and that goes along with too, because like if you get into anime recording, you're having to do this whole other task that you may not be familiar with actually doing it, of matching the lip flaps. So you don't have to be worried and thinking about, well, is my performance good enough? Is my voice good enough? Those things have to be second nature to you, so you can focus on things like the timing. And with anime, I'm sure we've all noticed before, just when when we get the animation, you have to mold your performance to match the lip flaps, because sometimes it'll break up a sentence awkwardly where 2 extra words are, there's a half-second pause where us talking now, we wouldn't do that, but you have to do that now because that's what the character's doing. And we don't notice that a ton in anime because the performances are just so great. They're putting themselves into it. And that's just another task in itself, is going, I know how I would say this line if it wasn't already animated, but now I have to match what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and an extra challenge that we sometimes get is that sometimes the animation doesn't perfectly fit what was recorded. So there will be animation errors that we actually go back in and dub and make sure that it fits. So sometimes it looks like it was said more naturally in English than it did in Japanese. Sometimes what happens a lot that I've noticed in a show that I've been dubbing recently is that sometimes they'll keep like breaths in. Like they'll just be like going and going and going, and they go, and then they'll keep going. And there's no pause in the way that they're talking. And so, especially the older anime, you'll notice that a lot of you watching in the J, there'll just be breaths left all in there. And to make it look as natural as possible, we just do the whole paragraph without breathing. And you gotta do like, and then go right into it. That's always a fun little added challenge. And sometimes ADR for video games. What I've noticed a lot is that you won't get to see all the time like a cutscene or cinematic. They'll just say, hey, this is like 2 seconds long. You have to say this in 2 seconds. And it has to be like, they'll tell you like 1.8 seconds. Good. Like 2.2 seconds. You gotta do it again. It's gotta be a little faster. And it's still gonna sound natural.
By still allow 1
Yeah, about 6/10 of a second.
They'll give 1.9 a chance.
Yeah.
1.9. Give that a chance.
We'll let it slide.
And sometimes it's not animated yet as well.
Yeah.
I worked on a couple of shows that like they have like little drawings that like resemble maybe kind of the characters, and they're like, this is when you start, this is when you stop. And you're like, nailed that. And 2 weeks later, they're like, hey, you did not nail that. And then come back and we do this whole section. So yeah, just rolling with the punches.
Now that you bring that up, it reminds me of like the weirdest one that I got was for Dragon Ball Daima. We were recording for it, and there were scenes that were animated, but there was one particular scene for this session that we were recording that was not animated at all. It was just storyboards. And what they had in the corner, and it was so cool, it was so interesting. They had in the corner just this little ball, like it was just a red ball, and it was just moving up and down how the flaps were supposed to go. So we were supposed to match the flaps of the red ball rather than actually the flaps of the character, because in the animatic, the character's like, while the red ball is like in the corner just moving up and down. And that one was just so interesting. And another added challenge of dubbing is that punctuation sometimes doesn't exist in dubbing.
It means nothing.
There's those commas don't exist. That period doesn't exist. The only period that exists is if you see ... Other than that, it's interesting. It's so interesting. 'Cause it gets me every time. Because I see the comma, I'm like, oh, the natural theater kid is like, I have to like pause it a little bit. And they're like, nope, you gotta do it again. Run through the whole thing, no pause. I'm like, son of a gun. It gets me every time.
Brad, you touched on having your character voices second nature, being second nature. Now, how does that affect you all as you're doing multiple voices in one session?
In my experience with doing multiple characters, this is just, other people may have had different experiences, but usually the way that I've experienced that is doing, everything that was character A, everything that's character B, everything that's character C, like that. Because you really do have to maintain the consistency of that character, their delivery, how they sound, and all of that. And I mean, there are people who can like jump back and forth between those voices, but I am not that person. If you want it, really good, clean performance, you're gonna break it up and do all the way through one character at a time. And I have ended up being in scenes where I am talking to myself, but not like.
Not actually,
Yeah, not in the studio. We're like, hey, how are you doing? I'm happy to be here. No, not doing like that.
It's, having to jump back.
Yep.
Ideally, exactly. That's how it would be done. With my job, because it's a little more unorthodox for voice acting, being YouTube work. We have a channel. It's called VTubers on YouTube, where it's multiple characters gaming. It's sometimes live action and a cartoon. Occasionally, it has been 2 of my characters playing a game together, in which I have to literally jump in between the 2 voices. Done it with 3 characters now, not at the same time, but it's always 2 of them. So I will literally be talking to myself, and it's all improv. So I'm also trying to have a conversation with myself and be funny. My main character, Combo Panda, is played a game with this new villain character, an evil hamster named Pack Rat, and I literally had to be like, "No, I'm gonna stop you! No, you're not! I'm going to do this!" It's madness. I have to keep bouncing back in between for like 20 minutes straight. And there are times where, I just have to, okay, I need some water, and it's like those 10 seconds are gonna be silent. My voice is like getting too jumbled. It's not how you'd want to do it. So usually it would just be you're leaving it all to one character's lines, knocking those out. Which character am I doing next?
Hi, jeez. Any questions for me? No. Okay. Do you guys have questions? Get them ready, yeah? Because there is going to be a mic in the front. And how about this? You have any secrets for a long-lasting career in voiceover?
Get blackmail on everyone you work with. No one can fire you then. There we go.
That's why Bradley goes to cons to get blackmail. All over the
I definitely think that having the mindset of continuing to grow as an actor, I think the second that you think you have reached the pinnacle of who you are as a creative person, you've put yourself in a position where it's harder to take notes, it's harder to say yes to opportunities. And I also think I think all of us have touched on this is it's amazing to find voice acting as a home base, and it's also something where doing other creative outlets I think are really important for sustainability and filling up your own cup as a person. I was talking to some cosplayers who had some amazing cosplay costumes that they had created, and I'm like, that's not in my skill set, but I really love to sit down sometimes with make a tiny little greenhouse out of paper and follow all the instructions, or we'll paint at home and I'm not good at painting, but it's nice to do it. Yeah, he says no, it's true. But I think it's knowing how to fill up that cup, and for me also it's just knowing who I am outside of what I do. I know that push comes to shove, if I had a hard day and I feel like the worst actor who's existed, knowing who I am outside of those things and knowing that my worth doesn't lie in what I do is I think a constant journey for all creatives. But we could talk left and right and center about how to keep your voice sustained and all of these things, but just having a grounded sense of who you are will not lead you astray in an industry where it's really easy to lose yourself.
That was beautiful.
Also, it's the most basic advice, don't give up, but you're gonna hit dry spells where you're like, am I ever going to get work again? And it's so easy to be like, okay, that's not for me, I'll move on and try to do something else. But that's where the perseverance and finding that joy in different types of art, because there's gonna be times where you don't hear from casting for so long, and you audition, and just nothing's coming. You're not getting any offers, and I think that's when you have to grind the hardest, right? It's that's when you're like, okay, let me put my head down and keep working. And what we say a lot, Annie taught me this, maybe a little corny, but what's for you will not miss you. So if you're supposed to get something, it's gonna happen, and everything else that, even if you're super excited, I nailed that audition, there's no way I didn't get this, happened to me very recently, and I give myself 24, 48 hours to be I'm angry about this, and it's okay, it's not for you, it's fine. Thank you for the car. So just taking everything as it comes. You're not the only voice actor, you're not the only one doing your art. Other people are going to get these jobs, right? And just not taking the losses, because you're going to get a whole lot more losses than you're going to get wins in this industry. So not taking that personally, because it's not personal. It might be, I don't know. But typically it's just it's not that you weren't what they were looking for. It doesn't mean you weren't good at that part. It just means like that just wasn't your part at that time, and your next part will come soon enough. So just like keep going.
Yeah, and building off of that.
I just want to do a quick one.
Oh yeah.
Here's the whole thing.
Don't be an asshole.
That's probably the best piece of advice.
I'm doing it wrong.
Absolutely best piece of advice.
I was just sitting there, I was like, I was
And
gonna
then I was an asshole when I interrupted.
No. Actually, that's an excellent point because you'd be really surprised how far not being an asshole will carry you in this industry.
Yeah, kids.
Just sorry to all the kids in the crowd, but literally just being someone who can show up and do the work, and someone who can even like laugh with the directors and talk with the engineers, and just be someone who's very personable and likable. That alone will make people want to work with you again. And it might not be on like the biggest show ever or the biggest role ever, but just the fact that you are likable and professional can leave a very, very good and lasting impression in so many people's minds that can give you work. And building off what those two were saying earlier, that you're not going to be meant for every role. And so, when you don't get booked for a role, something that my lovely girlfriend loves to remind me is that you have to control what you can control. Being cast, that is not something you can control. That is up to the producers, to the directors of a show, to the casting director of a show. That is completely out of your hands. So once you send that audition off, if you don't book it, well, what do? Maybe look at your demo reels. Maybe look at your resume. Maybe look at taking some classes to freshen up. Trying to keep yourself busy by controlling what you can control and trying to ignore the parts that you can't control, like auditioning and being booked. You can control your audition, but you can't control what the people listening to it think of it. And so, control what you can't control, or control what you can control. If you can control what you can't control, that'd be sick. That'd be awesome. That'd be an awesome superpower.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'd be living the dream, baby. But control what you can control. Try and not think about what you can't, and try and find fulfillment outside of voice acting. Because when you do, you will find the losses that you take, they will be diminished a lot more.
Like I said, with how to take your first steps into it, it's having a passion for it to where you won't be stopped just because you don't have a crazy voiceover setup. It's the same thing of when you're getting all these roles, you're at a high in your career. What's to follow is possibly a low, and if you hit another low where, like Jeremy said, you're not going to cast for a while, that can't discourage you. Again, you have to love it so much that you want to keep working at it. And the silver lining that I've always thought about, which he mentioned too, in a way, is like other people are getting cast in those roles. If you're not getting cast, that just means someone else like you who loves acting, who loves voiceover, did get that role. Maybe it's the role that, is going to get them to really, they were thinking about quitting or something. Maybe it's encouraged them. It did something great for them. There's so many people that want to do voice acting. It's such a privilege and a fun thing to get to do. And that's the other thing you have to remember is just, you may not be the biggest voice actor at all, but if you're doing any voice acting and you love it, then that should just be awesome for you. You're not doing it for the money, you're not doing it for fame, you're doing it because you want to do it. So if that's why you're doing voice acting, then you shouldn't really ever be, not on the right path.
Over the years, I've hosted a lot of voiceover panels. I love it. I love all the insight. I always learn something new. One thing that I see from people who are wanting to do VO work, one thing that kind of deters them is they think that they have to be in LA or New York to do this. Please tell the people why that's not true.
I went to college in Huntsville, Texas, right there, at St. Houston State, and I was there for theater, and I always, I was a big anime fan, had no idea how to get into voice acting. That was never on my radar. It was just something I'm like, would be cool, but that's something like no idea how to do it. And then I met Bryson Bogus, who voices Hinata and Haikyuu and so many more things that we don't need to get into right now. But we became real tight, and he's like, oh, I can't go to this because I'm going to record anime. I was like, you're doing what? How are you doing that? It's everywhere. You can do it at home. You can, but also like here in Texas, like Houston is where Sentai is. Dallas-ish is where Crunchyroll is. Like that's like a big anime hub is here in Texas, and that's just here. I obviously like not all of us are from Texas, but like you can do things from home. You can record all these things. You can do unpaid work to get these auditions for the bigger things. It doesn't have to be in these big voice over hubs in the country. So I don't know why I brought up Bryson. He's the one that taught me that you can do it in Texas, and I was like, sick. Let's do it. So I'll do that.
I think it also goes to the fact of the idea of the arts living outside of just those two places is a really challenged idea. I went to college in Boston for musical theater. I lived in New York and performed there. I lived in Los Angeles. I'm from Houston, and ultimately, you know, I'm happy to be back here. And I can say that it's an idea that I think is worth challenging with all forms of our, you know, arts and our industry. Is that there is beautiful, incredible, wonderful art being made. There are massively talented people who just have decided, for whatever reason, to live elsewhere. I think the more we challenge that idea, the more industry, you know, gets pushed and created to embrace cities. And I think the reason that, you know, for me personally, it's like a really cool thing to drive to Sentai and you know, record there is that you kind of feel like this part of you has this like, wow, my childhood self would be like, you're driving not too far from your childhood house to go do like a dream job. And like, it's sometimes hard to conceptualize, and I think, again, the more that we say you don't have to be in a specific spot, the more we empower other artists. Yeah.
It's also just the fact that we live in an age where remote work is possible. Like there's like, even if you come to my table, a lot of the characters that I voice that I have prints of, most of those characters I literally recorded in my closet, like just in my closet, the same way as you, just had clothes, a microphone, a huge comforter over my head so that I'd be overheating. Yes. But a lot of work is remote. You're able to do remote work now. Like I know that a lot of Nintendo's properties that they record, a lot of it's remote where people in different countries are recording for Nintendo's properties, like in their homes. So if a big company like Nintendo's able to do remote work, then it's accessible anywhere. Like you shouldn't have to feel just limited to one place. We live in an age where it's possible to do remote work. So don't let that deter you, don't let it stop you. If you love it enough, you'll figure out a way to do it.
Oh, absolutely. I got my career started just doing remote work. Yep. I would do everything remote. I made sure my closet was good enough, and it still has. I'm recording the biggest project I've ever been in my closet right now. So I started in remote, and I'm still doing remote to this day, 4 years in. And I mean, it's really awesome to get to go in studio. It's like, I remember when I first went in studio, it was like one of the biggest thrills I'd ever had, because I'd been doing nothing but remote up until that point. And, but here's the thing, you know, some people are moving to Dallas now to pursue anime. So New York and LA are no longer being seen as the only places that voiceover can exist. You know, back in the day, you might meet somebody and they were like, I want to move to Dallas for voiceover. And they'd be like, well, why would you do that? You know, like back in the day, that was like an actual sentiment. You're like, you might as well already live there, or else like, you know, or Houston or Dallas, or else there'd be no point. But now, because anime is so mainstream, we have been really lucky enough to get a lot of awesome talent that have moved here from LA, that have moved here from like Florida, from New York, that come down from these big hubs of voiceover to do voiceover in Dallas, because Dallas is being seen as a bigger competitive market to Los Angeles and New York. And a lot of times what has happened is I've seen a lot of Dallas talent go from Dallas to LA and then come right back, because they've established themselves in LA and they've realized LA is expensive as hell to live in.
Yeah.
And so while I have this super dope remote setup and all of these connections I've made in Los Angeles over living there in like 2-3 years, I can now live in Dallas and do all of those projects with those same people that already know me, know the good work I can do. I can do them from home. And so it's really, really cool to see this new like hybridized environment that voiceover has been allowed to do that you can't really see like on camera or any other facet of the acting industry. And so, yeah, remote is still very possible, and I very much encourage people to do it.
And a little off topic, but still kind of on topic, as far as like where you live, being able to do the kind of art you want to do. Art's needed like everywhere, even if it's not like big deal, quote, big deal stuff. Like art's needed in places that don't have these big industries, even if 2 people are seeing it or viewing it, like it is important. Not to be dramatic, but like art is super important. So make art where you are, even if you can't get to a place where you think this is where I'll get discovered or whatever like that. Like the work you're doing, no matter how big or small, is important. And no matter where you are.
I just want to say quickly as an answer. Funny enough, I learned through getting my job that you didn't have to move to New York or LA to pursue voice acting. I was going to move to LA right before I got my job as Combo Panda, because I was feeling like a big fish in a small pool in Houston, at least like the local acting scene. I was like, if I really want to make it, I should move to LA, because that's where the bigger paid work is going to be. That's where I'll find something bigger. And right like 2 months before I was going to move is when I got the audition for Combo Panda, and now I'm going into a studio every week and doing voiceover, and it feels like, you know, a real professional environment. And I didn't have to go anywhere. It was in my backyard. It's not always the case that everyone's going to be able to find that, but that just shows you that you don't need to stress about going into one of those hot spots for acting. It's really, the voice acting has just been so much better ever since the internet and allowing people to record remotely. Like even with anime, before 15 years ago when I was getting into wanting to be an anime, there was like there was a handful of people that were cast for every role. It was impossible. You didn't imagine it. And funny enough, Bryson is actually the first guy. I remember hearing it when he got cast in like Haikyuu and How to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, and it was like, wait, that guy, like, who? Like, yeah, exactly. It was one of my best friends knew him from community college theater, and I was like, wait, your friend, like, community college theater got cast? I thought they only cast like the same people they did, and that was where I was like, oh, and I just started seeing the pattern where now you're just getting all these new people landing leading roles. I'm like, yes, good, because we need more. There's so much talent in this world. We all deserve a good role.
And not to keep talking about Bryson, but he started doing
Like it's the Bryson.
The Bryson guy.
The Bryson.
I was saying he's one of your best friends, so it's not weird.
Man, a little weird. But he started doing his stuff like no like pay, just like doing it for like a hobby, doing it for fun, and now he's getting talked about on a panel he's not even at. So. You tell me.
Treat every role like it's the best experience you can get. Put everything into it, no matter what the role is, because you don't know who's going to hear you doing that, want to cast you in for something else, or you don't know what it could be preparing you for. So never discount any project you're on. If you get cast, even if you're not getting paid, if you auditioned for it, you offered your services, you go into that with the best attitude, because it could lead to something amazing.
And on that note, nobody's lined up for questions, which is crazy. But this panel is over. Oh, we have one? come on up to the mic. We'll do one. Yeah, you have to come up to the microphone. That's
It's the
on.
rule.
No,
No,
not
the law.
that one right there.
There's a microphone right over here.
Here's the thing,
That's
though,
all
you
good,
have
that's
to
all
say
good.
your name, what your favorite sushi roll is, and then you ask your
And
question.
a 16 part cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm team a Philadelphia roll, and do y'all have to have agents?
No.
Oh, okay. I was just curious.
That's just extracurricular.
I will say, yeah, extracurricular, when it comes to like theater or film outside of this, I know this is about voice acting, that's a conversation that kind of veers that way. Booking agents when it comes to conventions is like a different thing, but not when it comes to like booking actual casting roles.
That's something that, like, you know, a big celebrity like in Hollywood we're worried about. Where it's like, I'm getting so many offers, I'm gonna let someone else take it over for me. No, that's great.
Good
No.
question. Great question.
Good job, guys. Well, that's the end of the panel, man. Please give it up.
Thank you.
Jeremy G, Tiffany Grants, Mauricio Ortiz-Segura, Corey Wilder, and my buddy, my pal, my dude, Bradley Smith.
Yes, my name got said.
Also, Corey and I are not, in a show together yet, but, let's campaign for Wild and Wilder. So where do you meet the Wild and Wilder,
Sounds like a new MTV show, Wild and Wilder.
Wild and wilder.
After road rules. Hey, you ready to go have a good con?
Oh,
We'll
wait,
see you soon, yeah?
when's the radio play?
In about 15
15 minutes.
we are doing a live radio play in here. I think all of us are participating. We've never seen it before. We're going to be performing it for the first time ever. The debut, the world premiere. You'll be there.
And then after that, make sure you see them at their tables, because you know where the tables are. Go hang out with them.
And from 5 to 6, I'm hosting a stand-up comedy show in here, so come for that if you guys like to laugh.
Anybody else doing anything on this panel? I don't know anybody's schedule. Sorry.
Chaz is having a tap dance for us.
I'm gonna tap dance? I
Yeah.
tap dance
A
6:15.
5, 6, 7, 8,
I gotta go with the shoes, Annie. Hey, you guys. Go have fun.
Woo!